6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I am sure I'm streaming now. If I'm uncertain, I can always load the app on my phone, although I'll peek over here. Yep, I'm streaming, so you can see my ribbon of virtual desktops. I have one already active, and technically two. I'll go to one, and I do my Control-Alt-T to get us started. I actually see my pointer about 4 times the size of what you see it. That green pointer on my screen is this big whomping big one, but none of the screen capture software seems to capture that OS enlarged size. So I'll solve that one later. I may end this quickly because I've got some food on the way scheduled for 5:45, and it's 15 minutes away. So let's get right to it. J for my journal. This is my daily journal. And someone said, how did I make a daily journal? Well, I'm really just using Vim and am adding to a text file reverse chronological as one would with a blog. Only I manage the process with several I guess, shortcuts. The J, I guess I want to turn the light on my keyboard now, finally. It's dark enough. Okay, there we go. The J that launches it is in my SBIN. And we'll talk about that in a moment. Well, or even later. I'm going to be getting to this Google Analytics stuff real quick. Oh, yes. All right. And then, oops, I didn't go into insert mode there. Serves me right. The @J that adds an entry header is in my vimrc. So it's a invisible file that is made invisible with that dot. It doesn't show in normal listings. You have to do -A to show all files when you ls a directory. And that's the shortcut notation for home. So as you may know by now, I tend to drop out of Vim with a :sh when I need my shell back, although in this shell, Vim is still held there in a frozen state. And when I exit the shell, I'll be right back where I was. But I can do a ls from here, and you can see all my directories, my GitHub repos. But if I do an ls-la, you'll see, well, it formats it in a list for the L of LA, and the A says show them all. And you'll see I have a .batch for profile there. So when commands are not in my vimrc, they are actually also in my bash profile. Oh, but that's in my GitHub directory. So if I want to cd to home, and I do an ls there, I've got a number of files. I probably shouldn't have them all in that location. I'm going to be changing where I keep some of these files shortly. But I can do an ls-la, and there's going to be significantly more that shows, because in your home directory, you've got all these dot files. .sh, for example, is the standard location for where Linux keeps its secure shell protocol stuff like keys for public key encryption exchange. And so that's pretty much it. That's how I keep this journal. That's how I always have that on screen one. So if I were to do that Windows tab again, it's always full screen on screen one, and that is the Windows new Linux terminal that is used to access such things as Ubuntu, which you can now install from the Microsoft Store if you're on a recent enough version of Windows. And over here, I am in the middle of a little experiment I'm doing to incorporate Google Analytics code into Pipulate. So oftentimes, one of my important steps here is restart and clear output, because just like restarting a machine in the morning is a good thing, nuke the place from orbit, it's the only way to be sure. You make sure nothing's going on your machine that you haven't deliberately thought about and made that way, because otherwise you could screw up one way or another. So you want a clean slate when you start working, and one of the ways you get clean slated on your Python code is a kernel restart and clear output. So this first line here, block of code, is just setting the foo value equal to this ID, which happens to be Levinix, one of my sites that I have. These are incredibly tiny sites, but they have Google Analytics installed and at least give me a site that I can use. Anyway, I just got a message that my food is on the way, so I am going to end this stream now, and I'm going to come back and pick up where I left off. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hey, I should do that countdown in sync with the desktop, virtual desktop I'm on. So 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So it'll have the double meaning. I like that. Anyway, when we left off, I was showing you a little bit about how I keep this daily journal. It's primarily a work journal. So I really keep track of what I'm doing in day to day here from myself, I guess to some degree for my employer, so I can always have a place to copy and paste notes of my thought process from. So it's primarily to record and to process my thoughts. It's also primarily to process my thoughts. You might almost say, I think in them. And that's good, because it's better than handwriting. And with that said, it's also one long file that's been going on since like forever. And there's two easy places to get to in it, and that's with Vim. Shift-G, or actually just GG, brings you to the top of the file, which you often see when I load this. Shift-G, which is the bottom of the file, which is where I'm always adding those little notes that I need from a tech bag of tricks sort of point of view. And I can always search on hashtag bag of tricks and jump to this position. There's other easy places to get to, as if I were to use my @J macro, a new blog entry for the day. If I hit escape to get out of insert mode, you'll see where I left off is just down here. So if I just do a couple of U's for undo, it brings me back to where I left off. And I'm just going to push that down there and let you see what I normally see as I'm doing a first journal entry, which includes those 3 lines at the top, what I'm trying to learn most, and the entry as it is so far. So what we're doing, though, is we are incorporating these basic Google Analytics queries into Pipulate for somewhat permanent reuse. And I'll probably have to start organizing Pipulate a little bit better because I'm just throwing things into that _init file But for now, it seems to be working. And I like these examples. I want them to be extremely easy to access from Pipulate. Now, they're not, because when you do a pip install, all this stuff goes into buried libraries, and then it's only accessible again if you were to, I don't know, do a git clone, a clone off of GitHub of the project, or perhaps surf your way in to find the code. But there's also this inspect capability. So I just decided to start using the inspect function, and I got the get source method of the inspect function, and I tried to use that against the print, and it tells me, well, something was expected, but it got a built-in, and apparently you can't use get source on built-ins. So I created a foo function, and that foo function has got the foo. So I put that in memory, and now I try get source on foo func, and there it is. I guess there's some formatting or lack thereof. So if I throw that into a print statement, that probably gets formatted, yep, just like the original function. So this is all very inspiring now to both add these Google Analytics examples to Pipulate and add the ability for Pipulate to spit these examples out at you as example code. Now, this one here is the recent output of Python's own pretty print or pprint function. This one is not. So before I commit that to the Pipulate code, I want to prettify this little bit here. It's kind of a silly thing to do first, but I feel that way. So I'm going to, I guess, put this one in memory. I hardly even need to do that. What I really want to do is add a code block below to copy this as if it were a dictionary, and get rid of the dependencies on, in fact, that'll work. I just put double quotes, or I put them in quotes, and now this is a legit Python dictionary in memory. So again, I hit the A to get a code block back from above from where I was highlighted, and I can show you, for example, GA_QRY. I can show you that that's a dictionary in memory. And I can also show you that I can pretty print it, but not just now, unless it was in my import statements up there, because pretty pprint comes from pprint. That's the key thing. Oh yeah, from pprint, import pprint. I had done that. I had expected this step. Hooray me. Okay, well, there's really no difference. There's not so much done by pprint to this simple shaped object that's used for the Google Analytics version 3 API versus this much more sophisticated or complex shape that is used for the Google Analytics version 4 API. So anyway, I do have what I need for putting this directly into Pipulate. These functions are actually working. So if I were to go ahead and execute this, you'll see that I both have created the function in memory, because that's the definition of the function right here, and then turned around and actually used it, right? So I'm using a Pipulate built-in function to show a headline to create this line there. So this line here is a result of this line here. And Pipulate has some smarts in there on how to create headlines for either Jupyter Notebook or the console environment. And then I set the value of result1 equal to the function I just put in memory and fed it some parameters, including the parameter, which is the ID for my Levinix site. These results are of a pitifully low traffic site, but I'm just keeping my foot in the door with Levinix.com because it's an interesting project that continues to have fans coming in all the time. Surprising take up on that project. And so I have a sample site for things like this. And all I'm going to do at this point is lift this code and paste it into pipulate, which we do by going over to a screen to the right, do Control-Alt-T to bring up Lunderwand. Welcome to Lunderwand. And from there, I CD into the repo that we want, which is Python SEO. And from there, I got that wrong. I want the pipulate development environment. In fact, from anywhere I am, I can just type pipulate. And this is a result of my bash RC. That's an alias in my bash RC that makes that possible. The file I'm editing, as you can see if you look in the lower left here, is the initpy file from pipulate, and this is pipulate. So pipulate has a whole bunch of installs. I'm a little concerned about that, but it's not terrible for what it's doing. And I want to make sure that pretty print is not, okay, it's not, I do not want pretty print in here. That was a mistaken first thought. The next thought is, where do I put it? I'll put it near the recent work I've been doing. There's the crawler from the previous site. There's the SERP scraper from the previous site. This is where sort of the normal functions begin. And I think that spot there is not bad. Instead of adding it to the ends, I feel like it sort of belongs here. And these are Google Analytics functions. I probably would like to put it maybe like way at the bottom because it's like external to the program. I'm going to do that. Shift G. I'm going to find the last functions that are actually, I do some, okay, the log out, and then the unbuffered class. Okay, that's very interesting. And then I do a few things there, include use the unbuffered class. I can see why just appending at the bottom is not an optimal method either. I have some Google Analytics stuff already in here. Getting the GA host name, group it together. GA profiles, you're able to output GA everything. You're able to output pretty much everything in your account and build an object which is all that data in something you can parse through as if it were a JSON object. This looks like where our new stuff belongs. And one of the things I do is I just put a lot of spaces in there. So the space above and below makes it really clear to me that that's where I'm working. I want to paste this in. Escape. Colons. Paste. Paste. There is my first one. And here's the second one. I'm going to run that query. And this is the other API. This is the version 3 of the Google Analytics API, and it gets a number of metrics with the segment set to organic traffic. And that's what I want in pipulate. And so it is now in pipulate. One of the things I've got to do is get rid of the references of pipulate in pipulate because it is no longer being used as if an external package. All this stuff is native, so that's a little ugly that I use the same, the same object name for a briefly used. So this is slightly better. Avoid collides. So those are now in pipulate. And there is one more thing I want to put in pipulate so that these things can be easily shown. I want to be able to inspect. It's going to be an example. Let's see, examples. So it's going to be pipulate.example. So it's going to be def example. And it will take a name because it's going to be a function name. Func name. And the import should probably be done at the very top of the file. I don't think I put it in there yet because I don't see inspect. I am going to guess here. Nah, I don't want to put anything between those two. From inspect import get source. Oh, I was way off. That looks like it's a beautiful soup, friend. Okay, break and pep 8 left and right. Okay. So now gsem. I was saying G semicolon for go back through as if I were undoing, but without undoing, a little Vim trick. I do want pretty print. Huh. Again, not between those two. From pprint, import pprint. Well, I was less off there than I was before. So now I have pprint at my disposal. And so I am simply pprinting the get source of func name. Wow. Save. Go over here. Now you may recall I have this line saying unedit if editing pipulate, which I'm doing. So I re-import it. I have an invalid syntax, so we're going to find that I have something that I have done wrong around here. Of course, I left off closing parenthesis. Okay, pipulate is re-imported. Now I should be able to foo is set correctly. I'm going to get a new box here and go pipulate dot. These functions are now built into pipulate. And I should be able to call that using foo as my ID on a nice date range. Voila. This example is built into pipulate. Now, how about the ability to ask Pipulate to show you the code that's used to fetch such a response. So you're in the position of actually using Pipulate, and you don't have the example code at your disposal, but you have Pipulate in memory. So you would simply do pipulate.examples. Now I'll probably want to simplify this because you would have to know that there's a function called organic traffic. I'll put some sort of shortcut in there for I want it to be just GA or something, or I'll come up with an even better syntax for doing that. But, it's maybe probably example. There it is. Now it's not really copy and paste ready because you see it still has some encoding being exposed. So the real-time development here, we're p-printing. I'll have to figure out how to get rid of the extra formatting that's put in there. Returns are shown like this, but I'll figure that out, and that will be in my next video because I feel like wrapping this up. That's a good place to stop. Yeah, I'll commit that and stuff on my own time this time. Thanks for joining me. Hope to stream to you again soon, and don't forget to follow. 3, 2, 1. Hello. It's Mike Levin back for, I guess we can call this part 3 of incorporating Google Analytics example functions into Pipulate. First, okay, well, there's a bulleted list here coming up. One, put code in Pipulate and test. That's done. 2, put introspection code in Pipulate and test. That is also done. And when last you tuned in, I had some weird code going around this stuff and a difficult API for actually getting examples. So I reworked it really quickly by just using the plain old print statement here instead of pprint. So again, I don't really need to do that pprint import here anymore. And if you don't need it, you shouldn't have it. So I go back to where I was, and I'm simply doing 2 print statements of the included get source function, which I am using. However, this is a rather naked output, not putting anything in context. So first I'm going to prod people to be able to pull up the examples by, at the beginning of Pipulate, where I tell people to run pipulate.help. I'll put it in there. So if I copy that and then hit escape and B for below, and put that there, run it, and you can see it's mostly pandas and connectivity to Google Sheets help, even though there's a ton of other stuff that Pipulate is increasingly able to help you with, including site crawls and SERP scraping and all that kind of happy stuff. So I'm going to have to really expand and change this, but I think it's pretty important for me to tell people there's these Google Analytics examples. This is one of the biggest stumbling blocks in SEO. It's going to be the same for Google Search Console. Everything I do for Google Analytics, I shall also do for Google Search Console. I should have probably even put those first, given their fundamentalness. They are working for you on your site, whether you have tracking code installed like Google Analytics or not. Google Search Console is completely organic traffic Google-sided. They keep track of the traffic they're sending to your site on what keywords and when. And it's all quite available in a similar way as to the way I'm reaching for Google Analytics data, which is from their tracking system, the once upon a time Urchin system that has become part of Google for many years now. Probably a few people remember Urchin. But at any rate, this help is, go to the top, def help, and here it is. I'll just go, let's see, welcome to Pipulate automation, logo, the following quotes. Now you can select, okay, well, I'm going to put it here. I think it belongs here. So Google Analytics example functions are now built in for examples blank line indented. Ooh, I hope those aren't real tabs. Those look like real tabs. I will double check that before I import. Let's see, pipulate.examples, open, close. Don't. Okay, that should be enough to get people on the right track. I'll save that. I am just going to do a quick search for /T. They did, in fact, get in. Set expand tab and retab. There we go. That really needs to be its own keyboard shortcut. Better yet, it should not happen at all. But I can re-import Pipulate, and then I can reprint the help statement. There. So this is going to start to be exposed to people who actually are using Pipulate and following the instructions. And so I can use the same exact techniques as I used to help lead the way, to open the door, to help open people's eyes for the first time to this sort of stuff. Here, I can add that to def examples. Print. And now we look at the output of those examples, and I go, how should this look different when you type pipulate.examples? Well, I should put some context. The following are, and I should label these things. This is a example Google Analytics version 4 API query. And this is a version 3. And let people know that they can construct their own functions just putting the word pipulate dot before this right here, and this will completely work. It's just really a great approach to doing this, and then people can just hammer out their own functions in Jupyter Notebook while using Pipulate, with Pipulate giving them this, all so difficult to actually get in the first place piece of code together in their mind for modifying. And I'll probably include the URLs to where you can play around with these constructing queries with little user interfaces, because there are things like Google Query Analyzer and stuff that will let you construct functions like this, the shapes, the request objects, because when Google defines such a pedantic or information rich and context sensitive and prior knowledge required API for doing things like making requests of Google Analytics, then they have to also provide tools to help you figure out how to construct such shapes as this. This is the easier way it used to be. This is the more powerful but modern way that it is now. So let's document that fact. I've been rambling enough. This is an example. This is a Google Analytics API v4 example. You can copy and paste the code into Jupyter Notebook and put pipulate.before and it will be available. And I hope that makes sense. This stuff is all subject to refinement. I'll put a simple message here. This is a Google Analytics API v3 example. And I think they'll understand they can do the same thing. I don't want to be too repetitive, but we'll see how this looks, right? It's good for testing. And we test by just re-importing pipulate. I could probably put the whenever you get that left colon out of a function, or there's potentially tabs in here, and no tabs. Yeah, I didn't close a parenthesis or something. Open, open, close, close. Ah, this is the one I didn't close. Okay, and then we go down to where we ask for pipulate. Did I do that up here? I put pipulate help there. I am going to hit B for below and follow its advice and do pipulate.examples. Very, very nice. Let's look at that for a second and see what it says as I get the power supply for my laptop plugged back in here. And get my laptop plugged in so it keeps streaming. So anywho, that appears to me like it says this is a Google Analytics API v4 example. You can copy and paste the code into your Jupyter Notebook and put pipulate dot before that, and it will be available. So one would go like this. Copy. Paste. And you should just need to put pipulate dot. and it should be available to us as organic traffic query. Now, this is exactly what it was before in memory, so I think what I'll do is I'll just ask for a smaller, in fact, a very small set of metrics, so it'll just look like a shorter response, so we can tell real quick. And I should be able to do, I'm going to find the place I did that before, because it has my ID and everything. It looked like it. Yeah, this is it. Should be in memory. User bounce rate. Yep, it's only just 3 metrics there, and yeah, this is a different one in memory than the one I started out with, and so that's pretty much mission accomplished. I'm going to restart and clear output so we can clear the code up and perhaps clear my mind a little bit and get rid of the example code that I had sitting here so that there's never any question of what's what or what's where. At this point, I can kill this and just so on down the line. See how clean that is? We import pipulate. Which can always be a little longer than you would hope for, but it is because there is Google Authentication going on in the background. And if anyone who has struggled with this sort of stuff before can attest to that, anyone getting started with Python for SEO or for Python for anything, connecting to Google services, whatever they may be, is one of the very hardest first steps, and I take care of that for you in the background and make it just that easy. And in exchange for that, you have to wait a little bit, and I do print this out twice. That is, again, because I have added the read import line here. I do whenever I'm editing this file over here, because so following the instructions, I want to help. It says, oh, you can get some pipulate.examples. What if I do? Oh, right there, you have to copy it. And what is this example telling me? Oh, it's telling me I can copy and paste that. Now, I guess I should put an example line that is actually executing the example, because formatting the use of this function, especially is also a somewhat difficult matter, right down to the very specific date formats that Google requires. The fact that they're sent as strings, it's all kind of interesting. The only modification you need to make to any built-in functions that you ask for the code for is putting pipulate dot in front of this final calling of the Google Analytics query. So we can now call the organic traffic function with the view ID of foo that I have defined up there where I did the import. And now, 2020 -01 for the month -01 for the day, comma 2020 -02 -04 to yesterday. And that's going to ask for the organic traffic of the Linux.com site. Invalid date specification. Yeah, well, yeah, I guess it helps to actually send a valid date. There you go. You know how hard it is to do this kind of stuff under most circumstances? Now Pipulate educates you through the very process, both for the version 4 of the API, which I just showed you right here, and if you wanted to see that against version 3 of the API, we pick up that code and we do the exact same process. We do a paste there. Now these could be used directly. You could do pipulate.organic traffic, and it would work. It's just you'd be using the one actually built into Pipulate instead of following the examples of how to write your own. And this is definitely a teach a person to fish situation, because all the complexity of these functions just goes into building a dictionary object that you send on a request. And if you're going to learn any Python at all, you might as well learn enough to wrap a parameterized Google Analytics function in, right? Otherwise, what's the point? Code a little Python, people. And that's the same as this, but with the older API. I believe he's telling me the metrics on top. Version 3 of the API. Yeah, there it is, version 3 of the API. And this is version 2 of the API. I hope I got that right. So anyway, it's looking good at any rate. Whether I have them reversed or not is, I guess, besides the point at this point. I have made a major step forward in Pipulate, because as we teach you about, Python for SEO, I guess I should put it in the example above here. Make that markdown. Big part of Python for SEO is Google Analytics and Google Search Console connectivity. Okay, in as easy a way as possible. The easier it is to just connect to Google Analytics and execute arbitrarily constructed functions or requests against it, the better. I'll build in information about tools on how to actually build these from scratch without necessarily copying and pasting from here. It's not a bad starting point, but if you also want to be able to build it from scratch using a tool that lets you use a user interface to check different parameters and put in different values to get a result shape back, that you can copy and paste and drop into here, because this is for all intents and purposes a little chunk of JSON, just a little bit of variable names are valid. Oh, just a little bit of Python for slipping in variable values into the request. But still, those tools are useful for helping you get this shape, which is nearly impossible, quote, from scratch. And how do you know this stuff? Even the documentation, when you search on this, is not very robust. So sometimes there's try this API things, which sometimes give you the request objects, sometimes don't. But this is as good of a starting point as many, and better than a lot that I think. And certainly it'll help you navigate these objects. So I just, I'm displaying using Jupyter Notebook's built-in formatting the returned value of these things. But if I wanted to set a variable, say var, equal to that, var is valid, but I wanted var, so I'll re-execute that, just have it in var. Now I can show var, I can pprint var, and I can start to peel away at var. So you don't want the first object because it's column headers. And that dictionary, that dictionary may actually last to the very bottom. So you may have to reach in with a named, you do. It's going to be rows, of course. This feels like this is version 3 API. Yeah, good. Rows. And the first value. That is not correct. It is a list of lists, so it's the first item. It's the 0 item of the list, because it's a list with one item. So sometimes you have to throw in an arbitrary 0 item, and from there you can grab whichever item you want, which again, first item off the list. And in such a way, you can grab any individual metric. You just need to know how to reach into your object. And that's a pretty good end for the stream. Before I actually go, I'll commit. I'll just drop out into the shell, git commit, added GA examples, and added GA examples. Expressing the whole example of examples, and the meta-ness of it is beyond what you want to stick in there. Git push. Then that would be // setup.py /58 change word 59 save quit release. Will be updated in PyPy in a moment, so that anyone pip installing pipulate will get the latest. And if you've already pip installed pipulate, remember to do that command that you can always get quickly by searching on pipulate, going into the GitHub repo, and picking up that first piece of example code and executing this. This works with pipulate, but it'll work with any other library as well. This has the extra advantage. It really shouldn't be necessary anymore, I'm told, but that's already if you're on the upgraded version. So pretty much on a few versions up to recent. This command will both do the pip install into your local virtual machine environment, so it never misses where pip is targeting the install. It will force an upgrade, and it will override the attempt to use a local recently fetched cache, which is always done, especially now with a wheel system and stuff. This stuff gets cached all over the place, so you've got to overcome the cache in order to really do a fresh pip install upgrade of packages that are really dynamic and you're getting the latest of. And so that's released. I'll just exit now, back inside the pipulate code. But that's a good place to be. That's about all I feel the need to get out there tonight. Of course, I'm sort of building up to sort of a grand crescendo here, as enough of my previously held back in secret external pieces to pipulate are put consecutively into pipulate, so that I can sort of manage a more integrated, more ambitious project that touches all these pieces, instead of using a notebook here for this and a scheduled .py file over there for that, which might be in my unified list of repos, but to use this capability from this project and that capability from that project just becomes a real challenge. So pipulate is quickly becoming my sort of centralized point that I wrap up Google Sheets connectivity, which is sort of where this was born, which now supports Google Sheets formatting, now that PySheets is part of it, along with gspread. So I use a couple of other third-party libraries to simplify I wrap other people's wrappers to the Google Sheets API, for example. But even the wrapping of wrappers is an incredibly useful simplification step. So pipulate handles the G-Sheet connectivity. It handles the Google OAuth 2 authentication, which is a real tricky thing. It handles site scraping. It handles Google search result fetching. We'll be careful. It handles Google Analytics connectivity. I believe I have Search Console in there. I just don't have these meta printed out as examples to sort of encourage you to take the leap, but it supports Google Search Console connectivity. YouTube is in that category as well. I'll put YouTube in these examples. And almost anything that people commonly use as part of Google services that you can sort of pick up for free as a capability when you get that OAuth authentication, I'm just going to sort of throw in here and make sure if it's useful for some overarching grand SEO project, it gets used, and then we'll start to put together some more sophisticated SEO examinations using all of these tools, of the sorts of Python SEO kung fu that you hear people brag about using all the time, but you really actually see them do. So explain what you're doing and why. And show them a little of him in the process, like, yeah. Mission accomplished. Save. And thanks for joining me. Hope to stream to you again soon. And don't forget to follow.